I've been able to stay consistent with my content for the last 3 weeks, and every day I post a short form video, and I've created a system that helps me to stay on track with posting and offload some of the harder parts to creating content so that I can focus on what works best for me, which is filming and delivering the message. So I created a short presentation in my school community to help talk about how my process works, and so I'm going to share it with you now. So go ahead, learn something. If you want some more information or if you have any questions, either comment down below or just reach out to me in my community. All right. Okay, what's going on, everybody? So I want to go ahead and talk about the micro-branded blueprint. And what happens is, this is my pipeline that I use in order to get me from I have no ideas or what to post to a finished pipeline of content, information, things that I can start posting throughout the week. And so it helps me to batch everything in an efficient way so that I can continue to focus on all the other stuff I need to do and kind of offload my content strategy and plan. And so in order for it to work, there's a couple of things I need to have in place first, which is a filled out ICP so that I can structure the content in a way that appeals to my ideal audience. And so as a coach, I'm helping other people who want to put out content, which are other coaches who want to put themselves out. And with that, I define that really well so that I give it to my pipeline and they're able to take that information and really cater the topics it chooses, the hooks, the strategy around it, so that it really helps cater for them. So the main thing that you'll be able to do with this pipeline is to really identify the bottleneck, split this one post into 9 different, like split the task of creating posts into 9 different agents, because the way we see it is create content. But the way a machine sees it is, well, first I need to come up with the idea. Then I need to decide which platform it's good for. Then I need to decide, how to structure, how to write it, then designs for it and all the other stuff. And this is what really helps to solidify your workflow, because when you have each agent with a specific task, you get better results for that task. And when you chain them all together, then you're actually able to get a nice polished product versus telling it to one shot all in one take, and it starts to become difficult. So with that, you want to make sure that you have quality checks in place so that when it hands from one agent to the other, there's a third agent. So if there's 2 agents, it's going from one to the next. There's one in the middle that double checks to make sure that that output is correct. And so having that quality gate makes it so that it's better for creating content. You'll always hear the advice to just post consistently, but there's so much that goes into posting consistently that saying that doesn't really give it justice. You have to have a strategy and a system in order for you to post consistently for it to work. So this strategy and system makes it a lot easier for you to post consistently and for it to work. So these 9 agents have several jobs. So it's to find the topic, to route it, to prove it, write it, design it, script it, find the platform for it, and then ship it, and then look at the data that comes back afterwards. And so with all of these are different agents and different tasks that the agent can do so that it handles that on your behalf. And so instead of you trying to do all these pieces by yourself, you have this agent that's helping you with that. And these agents will allow you to handle these tasks in a way that keeps it clean and focused and give you better results, because each agent doesn't drift as long because it has its own task to worry about. So that's kind of the way you want to approach it when it comes to creating a large task like making content for you. Okay, so you kind of look at it as a assembly line. It's not just everyone doing everything. It's one person per task. It moves to the next. One person moves to the next. And in between each gap, there's a check to make sure that what's supposed to be coming out is coming out the right way. And so I have them given names and fun faces and pictures and stuff to help describe what they are. So you'll see them here. These are my agents. I have the trend scout. I have the content strategist. I have the researcher. I have the Hooksmith. I have a design architect, a ScriptWright, the Nexus, the Omnichannel Specialist, the publisher. I had to figure out why it gave me this other picture, and then the data analyst. And so these all work together to help me understand how my content is supposed to work and how to make it better. So with that being said, so let's start with the Trend Scout. So the Trend Scout is the very first step because it helps me find out which ideas are worth talking about. And so I gave it really two roles. I made it to look in different places. For example, for YouTube, I have vidIQ. So it's synced up with vidIQ. It uses Reddit. It goes to Quora. Indie Hackers was a good place for me to find content ideas in regards to AI stuff, strategy, and stuff like that. And it also does a normal Google web search to find what's kind of trending, whether it's from Google Trends or just things that people are searching in. It can find stuff that people are actively talking about and give me some relevant content pieces. So, for example, if it gives me a Reddit post, then I can see what people were saying, and then I can see the subreddits and what people are saying about that, so I can get a sentiment around that idea, and it makes it better for me to understand what people are saying. I can come up with a better contrarian stance because I can see the sentiment of one. And if I feel differently, then bam, I know for sure that because someone said this and I read what's going on in the subreddit, I can now give a better stance around it. And so with that being said, that makes it easier for me to come up with topics and not have to really come up from scratch every time I need a topic, right? And so what it looks like is it'll bring like a several amount of topics, but then it also scores that topics based on how relevant it is to the ICP that I'm working with. How does it hold up? Did I talk about it before in a previous batch? Because I do this batch every week. So if it's going to coincide, I want to make sure I'm not talking about the same topic with the same angle as well. Instead, it's going to be doing that job plus something different. And so with that being said, it makes it easier for me to not have to worry about, did I talk about this before? Instead, just focus on presenting that topic or, letting the other agents handle the recency of the topic it chose. So then that topic brief, it gives me about 12 different topics that it comes up with, and it rates them all based on, the criteria that I set in the agent, and it sends it off to the content strategist. And the content strategist, what happens is I give it instructions on which content types do better for a specific platform. So, for example, a listicle would probably look better on Instagram or on TikTok versus having lists on YouTube. It kind of works, it kind of doesn't. LinkedIn has its own kind of schedule, his own strategy and stuff. And so what happens is this content strategist makes it so that I can piece together these different things, and I give it the strategy once. And so it takes a topic and it chooses which platform, which format goes along with it. And so if I have 12 topics, some of them will be carousels. Some of them work better as text threads. Some of them work better as reels, or they can be story posts, or I can do, as you get larger on Instagram, you could do a broadcast, or you can do different things. You can go live about a specific topic, just like how I'm going live now. I want to talk about certain things, and these topics would do better as a particular content type. And so, say, for example, I do choose one of the topics from the Trend Scout and make it a reel. I can look back with my data analyst further down the line to see how it performed in comparison to the other stuff. And then that information comes back, refines the content strategist, so that if, say, for example, one topic I do as a reel or I do it as a carousel, it'll see which one did better and then make better choices moving forward as I continue with the pipeline. Okay. So I get a calendar every week so that I can see what's happening and how I can get, like, from a visual, when's going to go out what and what type to what platform, so that I can see everything happening and get an idea before my week starts what content should be going out. Okay. Then I have the deep researcher. So this agent for me is because I don't like false stats. I want to see where this information is coming from, who said it, verify the source. I want first party data. I don't want anything that I've been seeing now, a lot of AI generated websites that just comes out of nowhere and starts spouting out facts and stuff. And then if you're not careful, your agent will find that data and use it and call it fact. And so to get around that, because I've had instances where the Trend Scout would bring me some interesting facts saying that hashtags are still relevant, and then the deep researcher will find that that wasn't actually a good fact, and it doesn't have any supporting data, so now it's not worth going into it. And so the deep researcher makes it so that if it does find a topic that works and the content strategist approves it, it finds more supporting topics that would support what that original was. So I need to make sure that whatever sources or quotes that I say come from real places and not just made up stuff, because me personally as a pharmacist, I want to make sure I'm giving out true information. And the only way I can do that is having a additional agent verify the information that's being presented the first time. And so that's really for me, but I really like this agent because if I want to talk about content strategy, it'll find me additional topics that support the strategy that I'm promoting so that I know it's coming from more than one place and has better weight and validity around it. And so I would see a quote like this: studies show 73% of creators quit by month 3, but that's not really true because there's no source. And without the source, how do I know it's true? So that was why I had the deep researcher to come up with stuff so that I could be able to give verified facts, right? And so with that, I get this one report and it goes to all the agents and it works. Okay. So with that, I move on to the Hooksmith. Now, the Hooksmith, this is the first instance of where it really sounds like me when I create the content. The Hooksmith's job is to write the hooks and the captions for the posts so that I don't have to spend that time writing it myself. Because a lot of times, if I create a post, I need the caption to be a summary of what I just said. And with that summary, I can then add it as a caption per platform, and it just focuses on taking what I'm saying and making it better. A lot of times with the reels, sometimes I just need some scripts because I don't want to talk from a blank space. I want to have something I can work with and improve it. And so the Hooksmith, I've given it some of my voice guides. I take whisper flow and I talk about a specific topic. So if I get a topic from the Trend Scout, I give my take on it and I'll write it out first. Then I'll speak the script so that's in my speaking voice. Then I'll give that back to the Hooksmith, look at my patterns in the way I talk so that future scripts sound like me the first pass, right? And so the thing about the Hooksmith is that as you give it more of your voice data and it starts to learn how you speak, the scripts get better over time. And so all you have to do is take a script that it gave you, re-say it, and record your version of it, give it back and say, hey, this is how I would say the script instead. It analyzes the patterns and then makes an updated voice guide so that maybe a month, 2 months down the line, I'll have better scripts because I kept going back and forth with the Hooksmith. And so I really wanted to make sure this was good for short form content because I've noticed that by the time I get to long form and other stuff, I have a different speaking voice for that. So the Hooksmith is mainly in charge of reels, anything under a minute, 30 seconds. It's in charge of carousels. So it writes the copy for the carousels and it does the captions and other things that for short form content, right? And so I made sure that it doesn't do the antithesis thing where it's like, it's not this, it's that. Or you're not posting because you don't know things. You're not posting because this, that, and the other. That antithesis thing, that's what it's called. And then actually and here's and all these buzzwords that are AI first. And I just want to make sure that it gives me a script that's better and doesn't just use the generic AI tropes. I give it a voice guide and I make sure that all of that stuff is locked in so that every time I use it, it runs it, it starts to run better over time. And then I can also still continue to improve it. And so when you're saying, so this written by the Hooksmith, your reel isn't losing people at 30 seconds, it's second 4. And that kind of thing is still antithesis, but it doesn't read directly like AI because that's something that I would say. And you'll see the nuance over time, but it's these little things here and there that eventually make it sound more human than AI. And I still tweak it from here and there. And it'll also have to tweak to your own voice patterns so that you can get better with it. But at the same time, this is how it starts to improve as you give it more instruction. Then I have the design architect. So the goal of this design architect was to make it so that it could create the carousels for me and it could create assets for my reels. And the way it works on the under the hood is that once it gets the hook and carousel copy, then it's going to then design the carousel slides. So it just takes the words, puts it in image form, and then creates a 9 or 10 carousel slide deck for me. And so that makes it easier for me to like what happened was when I tried to make it do the copy and make the images, the copy got worse. And so instead of making the agent do both jobs, I made the word one be more focused on just words and this one just be focused on images. Also for my reels, it's going to edit the reels so that it can create hyperframes assets to go along with the reel. So if I have some motion graphics, if I make captions, that's kind of under the design architect's role. So that way it just handles the visual components of my posts and everything else in the pipeline handles the other parts. And so with this concept, it makes it so much easier for me to say that if I'm having an issue with the way the carousels look, that's because the design architect doesn't have it done correctly. And when you add roles and kind of personify these agents in a sense, just like if you had a content team, who would be in charge of what? And this is some way that I can keep track of if something's breaking in the pipeline, who isn't doing the job in the way that I want it to, and how do I then fix it? And so the design architect really handles that part because, as you know, you have different content types to help with getting the message across. So if I have a motivational message and I say, you should post consistently, and it's easier said than done, I can create a reel that riffs off of that. I can create a carousel that supports that. I can create images with just the quote on that, easier said than done. And these kind of things can help to really amplify that message. So I have several content pieces per idea. And that's the whole point of this pipeline, so that the ideas I do have, I can get the most content out of it based on what I can do plus help, right? And so, like I mentioned, the carousel copy comes from the Hooksmith and it goes through to the design architect. I use either HTML, I use headless Chrome browsers. I can get it to take screenshots of stuff that's online. It can, find any helpful images or video that can add benefit to my post to make it more engaging, whatever's going to help enhance the message. And so that way, once it does that, I either have parts for my reels to get better, or I have better carousel copy or carousel images. And that's what I've been doing so far. So then I have pretty much this system just makes it so that it makes it so much easier for me to get more content out, because I also had to come up with the design. I needed to make sure that it knew my colors. It knew the fonts that I wanted to use. It had kind of a hierarchy of where things should be placed. I used Pinterest and other places to kind of source things that I liked that looked like me. Instead of it being more generic, I liked the kind of digital look. And so a lot of things ended up looking digital on purpose versus just the default Claude look for stuff. And so, for example, if I wanted to show you some of the carousels I did, it would look like, gosh, give me 1 second. And so there was a point in time where I was doing these type of carousels. And so these were actually working pretty well for TikTok. And I used Google Gemini's API so that Claude could then tell Google to make me these images. And these 3D looking ones were pretty cool looking. Google Gemini at the time was really good at making the words on the carousel. And so it did the words. I told it what words to say, and it just created the words and the image. And I was able to do that plus the inner slides. And so that combination worked really well for making sure that my carousels looked pretty good. All right. Then there's a ScriptWright. So this one, it takes that same idea and turns it into long form. And as I mentioned before, my long form voice is different from my short form voice. And so having two different agents with two different content types makes it so that the outputs are still better. So a YouTube script for the ScriptWright sounds better than if it was a YouTube script written by the Hooksmith, because my short form voice, as I mentioned, just doesn't is too short to really give full context on a point. So with that, having a different voice guide for the ScriptWright also sounds similar to how I'd write a script. So I use a ScriptWright to not only do my YouTube posts, but for blogs. And so that's the idea behind it. Now is the point where, since I had the Hooksmith and all my short form reels, I've been posting every day for the last 26 days, and that's kind of locked in at this point. Now I want to start adding long form to the system in a way that doesn't have to add too much to my plate. So they always mention for YouTube, you start with one YouTube reel a week, and you continue to do that and improve. But with so many of the other aspects being handled by the agents, I may be able to do one YouTube video a day if I have enough context to talk about, which I'll have the deep research information plus the scripts. So I kind of have an angle of which I want to talk about it. Not to mention the scripts in and of itself have different scripts. So they have story scripts, they have listicle scripts, they have different ways so that it's not just one YouTube video type, it's several different types based on the idea that's coming from it. And with that, I want to continue to, once I execute it for myself, then I can say, okay, this is what's been working, and continue to refine this process. Because at the end of the day, I want someone else to be able to use my agents and get catered results for themselves and make it easier for them to create content, just like it's been working for me. And so with the script, you'll have a good hook, and then it might drop off, and you'd want it to get better with understanding where people are dropping off, which is where the data analyst comes in. But right now, it's just getting the scripts out and getting some data to start working with it. And so just like this, you have the research, you pick the framework, you picked whether it's going to be a story or some other thing, and then it writes the stuff. And then that same YouTube script can then become a blog post, and where it kind of talks about it and adds supporting images, just like YouTube has supporting videos to go with it. So that's kind of the whole idea, to take that one topic and you get a carousel, you get image, you get Twitter thread, you get a long form, you can get a short form, you can get the blog post, and every content piece comes out and gets pushed out by these agents. So the Nexus, this next agent is supposed to be that quality gate. So it makes sure that the Trend Scout doesn't give me bad data. It makes sure that the scores are accurate. It double checks each agent's output so that I don't have to do that. And so I teach the Nexus what good means to me. And so, is this output good? Then it goes to the strategist. Is this output good? Then it goes to the deep researcher. Are these outputs good? And so teaching it that makes it so that at least by the time I go back through the pipeline, it has less errors than when I didn't have this agent in place. And so that whole process was a lot of back and forth, and it's still not perfect. But the idea behind it is that I need to also replace me, because my role is just to make sure that it's correct. And so if I can teach it what correct means, then that's going to be less involvement with me, and I start focusing more on just the execution, the filming, and the other parts that I more so enjoy in the content process, versus coming up with scripts and editing and all the other stuff that I don't really want to do. And so as I continue to fix this Nexus system, it's going to start getting better at giving me better outputs, because it knows how to check for what good looks like. And as these agents come up with new updates, like new Fable, new Opus, new versions of them, this Nexus gets better. Okay. Then I have the Omnichannel Specialist. So each platform has its own rules as far as how long the captions need to be, whether or not it uses hashtags, the type of voicing. As you've seen before, like LinkedIn has a very professional voicing versus TikTok's very informal. And so if I try to get the Hooksmith to write per platform as well as write in my voice, it starts to drift. And so what happens is the captions and other aspects of the post go to the Omnichannel Specialist, where it refines it for that platform in my voice as well. So it's kind of like a duplicate step, but it just makes it so that it doesn't drift as bad and then starts using the words that I say are banned, like actually and here's and all the other stuff that starts to sound really AI like. And so when I want to post everywhere at once, Instagram has 1,200 characters as its caption post. Meanwhile, TikTok has like 120 characters, or X has, it's kind of almost like unlimited, and LinkedIn has a certain cap. Instead of trying to memorize all these caps for one agent, the Omnichannel Specialist, his whole role is to do that. And so that has made it a lot easier for me to just keep that stuff going. And so with that, I have the publisher. And the publisher's job is to make sure that these posts go out. And what it looks like under the hood is that the publisher has a bunch of automations, whether it's going to Google Sheets, it goes to Cloudinary, it goes to make.com. These different things make it so that I can post everywhere at once. So what I've ran into was, in order for Claude to post for me, it can't go directly to the platform. And so not only that, the platforms have their own specifics in order to post outside of the platform. So setting up those APIs and things, having a third party in between, so that, for example, in order for me to post to TikTok, TikTok doesn't have a make.com module for me to log into Make and go directly to TikTok. Instead, I use another third party called Zernio, and it goes from Claude to Make to Zernio to TikTok. And then what happens is the actual video itself, if I'm doing a reel, doesn't get posted by Claude. It doesn't take the MP4, and that's a really large file to transfer through Make. So what happens is it can transfer the data through a public repository. In that case, it's Cloudinary. And Cloudinary hosts my videos and gives me the URL to the video, just like there's another, like God, what is that video one called? What is that image one called? It's, the name will come back to me. But what happens is that URL, the platforms can pull from it and use it just like how Google Drive would be, but they don't use Google Drive. The Google Drive is like banned for social media platforms to post via API. So Cloudinary, it sends the video to Cloudinary, it gets the URL, it takes that URL, sends it to Make, sends it to Zernio, to TikTok, adds the captions and hashtags and stuff, and it posts. And so now Claude can post to TikTok, Claude can post to LinkedIn, Claude can post everywhere at once in different ways, but the publisher is kind of just the skin I use to help get that content published from Claude. So the goal has always been work from Claude, stay in Claude, get results. And so this whole pipeline is so that I just have to worry about interfacing with Claude, and it handles everything else. And so this publisher is a way that I'm able to get it from finished on my desktop to publish to the platforms without me having to open them. And so that's how it works, and I can go deeper into it. And so after that, once it's published, I ran into the issue where I don't know that it's done. And so I added a scenario to Make so that the published video could then, it gives me a notification to my phone saying that it's been published, and it gives me the URL so that I can check it and make sure that it is actually live on the site. And so these kind of checks and balances gives me the verification that once I say, okay, post it everywhere, it's everywhere I need it to be. All right. And then the last step is the data analyst. So now that I see that I have all these published posts and all these things that are happening, how do I know what's working? And that's the whole goal of the data analyst, is to see which post is doing what numbers, and how do I take that information and feed it back to my pipeline so that it makes better decisions moving forward. Because the whole goal is to grow, and I'll only grow is if I make changes in the right direction. So the data analyst has to then know what direction is good, because yes, more views are good, but can it also see how many people are liking it, how many people are sharing it, what's the engagement, the amount of comments. And because sometimes the API per platform is limited, I can't see like the retention graph on YouTube, or I can't see, the API data, but like I can't see all of the different video centered metrics that are platform native. I have to log into Instagram to see that stuff. Instead, I get what I can get out of the API. I think moving forward, I could also get the agent to open up a Chrome browser, log in and see my data and stuff. So I'll work through that. But right now, for what it's worth, I can at least see enough to make a decision as to whether or not the content is performing well. And so that gives that information back. It gives me a regular report every morning at 5:30. It runs the APIs and lets me see how many new followers I got. It has a nice little dashboard so I can click in, see the posts, go there, and just make my workflow smoother when it comes to checking all my platforms every day. Instead of manually typing in the URL for TikTok or Instagram and stuff, I can then use this to just see everything at a glance and then keep it moving. So that's the whole goal with that. All right. And so with that being said, these agents help me to create my content, and I plan to continue to refine this process, make it easier for people to use and understand. And with that, it's just a matter of how do you build out your ICP? How do you word and talk your content? What resonates with you? And really make this a system that can work very modularly for the person who needs it. And so if you have any questions, continue to put them in the group. Talk to me, hit me up. I am happy to share everything I found out, and I'll continue to publish my results so that we can all kind of grow and learn from this system. So thanks for tuning in. And I'll see you on the next call.